have it. We're live now. So, see, if anyone else you want to share, then now's the time. I need to. So, let's see. Check to see if anyone's on. There we go. Login.
Hey, we're looking forward to this show today.
Yep, it's the first one this year actually.
Oh, wow. I'm
Yeah,
honored. Thank you
yeah,
so
you're
much.
the first.
Hey, I just
Yes.
noticed my lipstick doesn't really match very well with this pink shirt.
Mm. Okay.
Women
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. I can't say
Well,
anything because,
some guys
well,
wear lipstick.
some
I don't
guys,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, some, but not all.
yeah.
Some do. Excuse me, folks. I'm just feeling the bugs. So,
The
any,
bugs.
yeah, let's see who else gets up here. Oh, here's
So we're streaming live on YouTube.
YouTube and Facebook. So
Awesome.
it's on the Thru Autistic Eyes official Facebook page as well. So and yeah. So are we ready to get started officially?
I'm always ready. Oh, yeah, I'm born
Oh yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
Let's go. My
Yeah,
program is
let's
called
go.
Women Action Takers for a
Let's
reason because we're
going.
ready to take action.
Yeah, we're here to take action in 3, 2, 1. And here we go, people. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the first episode this year of Thru Autistic Eyes. I am your host, Christopher D. Casson, who also just wants to be able to rediscover the world again. And I'm taking you guys along with me. And I also happen to be a photographer in the Northwest Indiana and Chicago region where I use my autistic eyes and vision to basically see things that others don't. So that help businesses and nonprofits. But enough about me, because we're now here with our guest, who is a speaker. She's also oh my, it's just it's a lie because you also do you you have a book out as well as doing so many other things such as an executive producer for a film that we are going to talk about as well as helping women being able to face their fears and become their best selves. So this is Lynda Sunshine West, and I really want to thank you for being able to join me on the very first episode here
Whoop,
of
whoop.
The Autistic Eyes.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, and I love being the first. I mean, even though it's not, it's
Mm,
just the first of this season, right? But still, the
yeah,
first is the first, and
yeah.
I'm
First
excited
is
to
the
be here.
first.
That's right.
Yeah,
And by the
can't
way, I
beat
love
that.
the name, Through Autistic Eyes, because
Mm,
it really, hones in on the differences. Because our differences, like a lot of times we talk about our disabilities, right? But I don't see them
yeah,
as
all right.
disabilities. Now we
This
hear about,
ability.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like they're just different abilities, and we all have
yeah.
different. Maybe there's some things that I do better than some people, and then other
Mhm,
things that other people do better than me, and that's
yeah,
just what makes this world a cohesive place. And people with autism,
yeah,
like there's nothing different. It's just, I mean, there's nothing like disability about it. It's just a
yeah.
different ability, and so I
It's
love
just
it
a
through
different.
Autistic Eyes.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just that, going off of that, it's just a different way that I experience the world, really. Because, I take in, how do I describe it? Because it's, it's like I'm taking in more information than usual, s- in a way.
Mm.
That's how I think about it. And sometimes it could just become so overwhelming that, you go into those shutdowns and meltdowns, but it's just a matter of learning to manage that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. And so as you've gotten older, because like when you were a kid, did you have periods of meltdowns and like nobody knew what the heck was going on, what you were going through? And is
Mm.
it because as we've gone through the years, there's more knowledge, more education about it? Do you find that more people are more, I don't want to use the word forgiving, but I'm not really sure what word to come up with. But
Um,
how do you see the difference today as opposed to when you were growing up?
there's better awareness, certainly, because, the I guess you could say I was the first autistic kid at the school, and it was kind of a mixed bag on how they handled it.
Yeah.
Because, you're always going to get those people that think, oh, I just need more discipline. I don't really have this and whatnot. And then you have those that are they're working their best to understand, but
Hmm.
again, it just needed more resources, such as, more, just more research about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's better, but we still have a long way to go, especially since another random fact to really say is that it's actually easier to detect autism in boys than girls. So a lot of women sometimes end up living their lives undiagnosed and always wondering what's wrong with them.
Mm. I have wondered that about myself often. What's wrong
Yeah.
with me? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
And that's not even getting to, well, we're going to get more into that, but first we need to talk. Let's get started of how you began, because you have mentioned before that you have faced a fear every day in 2015 as a way of you started. So I was wondering, what exactly was that one fear that prompted you to finally face that, and basically what started this whole process in the first place?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's interesting that you asked the question, like, what was that one fear that prompted it? There really wasn't one. So when you asked, I'm
Mm,
like, there really wasn't one. But what had happened was in August of 2014,
mm,
I decided to hire a life coach. I was actually
mm,
driving to work one day and I was asking myself this question. And at the time, I was 51 years old. I was asking myself this question, like, there's got to be more to life. Like, what is my purpose here? What's the
yeah.
purpose of life in general? But why am I here? I felt so useless. I felt like
Mm,
I was the job that I was doing. I was just basically pushing paper all day long. Not really having any
mm,
purpose. My
yeah.
job was no purpose, and I felt like I didn't have any purpose. By then, my kids were already out of the house.
Mm,
They were adults and had been gone for a while by then. So I was trying to ask myself, like, what is this whole thing about? Why am I
mm,
here? And then I ended up finding a life coach and I hired her. I worked with her for 5 months. So that was from August until November of
mm,
2014. And during that period of time working with her was like every single week for an hour, right? And at
mm,
the end of every single session, she would give me a homework assignment for the week. And I'm a very good student. I go in and I
mm,
do my homework. So
yeah.
every week I did my homework and I learned so much about who I am and
Mm,
what value I have to offer this planet. And
mm,
it was during that time working with her that I discovered my why. I discovered my value. I
mm,
discovered that I do have purpose for being here. And when I was done with her, it was like the end of November. I ended up quitting my job. I had been working for a judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which was a
okay.
cool job, but for me, it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
It didn't align with my purpose.
Yeah, it didn't align with what was just something that was deep within that was nagging at you, and yet you
Yeah.
kind of ignored it because for various reasons. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that because really the main reason was because I was ignorant to looking at it. Like I
mm,
was just not paying attention and I was just living my daily life in survival mode, really. I
mm,
grew up in a very abusive, alcoholic household. I married my
yeah,
first husband was to somebody just like my dad, very abusive,
yeah,
alcoholic. And,
mm,
and, it took a long time for me to start to believe in myself. I've been married to my husband I've been with him for 31 years. My current husband,
mm,
he's absolutely awesome, but sometimes you're too close to that person.
yeah,
And no matter how many times he complimented me, I would be like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you love me." Like I would,
yeah, because
it,
of all the past stuff that's been like implanted in you since like childhood and growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it did take for me to have a life coach for her to like unlock all
Mm,
these things that had been locked inside. When I was 5 years old, I ran away and I was gone for an
mm,
entire week. Now,
mm,
at 5 years old, I mean, I was literally gone and I would have stayed gone forever if it were up to me. But my mom knew where I was and had me come back home. So I came
mm,
back home with my tail between my legs, with my head bent down. And I used to actually walk staring at the sidewalk. I would never look people in the eyes. And I always used
mm,
to say, I'm looking for money. Like that was always my
mm.
my reason, like what I would say. But it was because I had so much fear about people. I had,
Yeah.
my dad was so abusive that it caused all this fear that just boiled up inside of me. So after working with my life coach for 5 months, I left my job, and it was January 1st of 2015. Now, I don't do New Year's resolutions because
Mm.
I always break them. I have never
Yeah.
ever
Most
finished New
people
Year's
usually do.
resolution. Yeah, exactly. So
It's just what the
I
point.
see, yeah, they're like resolutions for a reason, right? Because you're
Yeah.
resolving something, like you're resolving yourself to the fact that you're not going to do them. And so I woke up that year and January 1st, and I was like, I got to do something different. I
Mm,
had worked with my life coach for 5 months. My time with her was done. What can I do this year that's different, that'll
mm,
keep that momentum going? Because I had built up so much momentum by, literally doing
yeah.
my homework every single week. And people were telling me, oh my God, you're so different this week than you were last week. So I
Mm,
knew I was changing, drastically and fast, right? So I
mm,
said, you know what? I got a lot of fears. I'm going to face a fear every single day this year. And that was how it started. And I
mm.
will tell you that
Okay.
throughout the whole year, so what I did is in the morning, I would wake up and I would ask myself out loud, what scares me? And my
Mm,
husband first at the beginning thought I was nuts, but I would just like, what scares me? And I would lay there and wait in bed until an answer came. Whatever that
mm,
first answer was that came was the fear I had to face that day.
mm,
So they were situations, situational, like attending networking events. I have a hard time
mm.
starting a conversation. Like I'm, a very
Yeah.
shy person, believe it or not. Like here
I
I'm,
understand autism.
okay,
So
okay, okay. Oh, maybe I'm autistic. I don't know, but
I I don't well
I think I might have some tendencies, but
yeah.
so I had so many different fears, and I started down this journey of facing a fear every single day. Now, what
Mm,
I did is throughout the process is I didn't journal it because I had no idea I was going to end up writing a book about it. I had no
mm,
idea I was going to end up talking about fears. So I was just going through my life and I was
mm,
facing a fear every day. And it was really cool because about maybe 7 or 8 months into it, I was kind of looking back and I say, wow, there seem to be some patterns of
mm,
fears that are reoccurring. And what are those fears about? So then I looked through my
mm,
childhood and I was like, I figured it out. About 80% of my fears were were based on judgment, the
mm,
fear of judgment, which is
yeah.
the number one fear. And I
Mm,
didn't know all that until I was going through this. So what I did is I started to kind of like discover who I am
mm,
and started stepping out into the world as me. No matter where I go, whether I've interviewed stars. I interviewed Wesley Snipes on the red carpet last year, which was really cool. But I
yeah.
was just Lynda,
Yep.
and because I stepped into me and who I am, and not worrying about what anybody thinks of me or says about me or anything anymore, I'm able to do so much more because there's
Yeah.
no longer that fear of judgment hanging on my head.
Yeah, it's not something that just lingering around kind of pressing you down. It's just you just charging right on through.
Yeah. And I still have the fear. So the difference between now and then is I used to have the fear and I wouldn't do anything about it. I would
Mm,
just kind of sit back. But that's where Women Action Takers was born, because I
mm,
found myself, if you're facing a fear every day, you're daily in action, right? So you either have that you're in action or you are inactive. And I found myself every single day I'm in action, making movement, making forward
mm,
progress, discovering, making a lot of failures and screwing up things a lot. But
yeah.
every single time I learned a great lesson from the failures. So I found that this
And
was like a perpetual motion that I was doing, and I was constantly moving forward. And it just felt so good that I wanted to keep that momentum going. And so I created Women Action Takers,
yep.
to help other women do the same thing.
Yeah, so I was about to ask what about telling us more about women action takers, because that seems to be your bread and butter, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, so to
Yeah.
speak, yeah. And it's really cool because I'm actually in the process of trademarking the name right now, Women Action Takers.
Mm,
And I got my letter back today from the Patent and Trademark Office saying you did these things wrong, so go fix them. So the
yeah.
process is you apply, and I heard that like 99% of the people get a letter saying you did something wrong and go fix it.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
I'm in the process of that, and so I'm super excited because again, it's forward
Yeah.
movement,
Yeah.
right?
You want to take it to the next level so you could help even more women be able to discover their ability that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
always
exactly.
have.
Yeah, and oftentimes they don't know it, right? I didn't
Yeah.
know. I didn't know who I was or what abilities I had because
Yep.
I became stifled, when I was 5 years old and I ran away for a whole week, right? I kind of stifled myself because of the fears
Mm,
that I had. So,
yeah.
I created this community. It's all about community, about creating a community of like-minded people. So whatever like-minded means to you, and I love that term. I want to meet
Mm,
like-minded people. Well, first we need to know who you are and what you're
yep.
like in order to know if we're like-minded, right? So,
Yeah.
creating this
True.
community of, like-minded women who are very supportive and then, providing guidance for them. So oftentimes when we're growing our business, we're tunnel visioned because we're who
Mhm.
we are. And if we don't reach out to other people and ask for help, we don't know what steps to take, or we let our overwhelm take
Mm,
over, and then
yeah.
we just kind of like put on the brakes, and like I can't make a movement forward because I don't know what to do. So
Mm,
I created this environment. And it's, a mastermind program that I have, and in the process of, like I said, trademarking the name, and there'll be a whole bunch of different things that eventually, as I move
mhm.
forward, there'll be
Yep.
different things that I'll be adding on along the way as I go.
Yeah. It's definitely exciting for all the women out there. And I also looking things up. You also had something called the ask method, and I was kind of curious. What exactly is the ask method?
I created that, and again, it's all about action, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everything is like, just, I should say, not everything, but just about everything I do is about
Mm,
taking action. And I
yeah.
created this ask method. There is actually, I didn't even know this, but there actually is another ask method out there, but it's not the same as mine. So
Mm,
the ask method, it's a very simple method, and the A stands for always assume the answer is yes. Like, always
okay.
assume the answer is yes. So when you go, I'll give an example. I was attending an event, and this was about 2 years ago. And Jack Canfield, who is,
Hmm.
co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, they've sold over 500 million copies of
Yeah,
the
I
Chicken
definitely.
Soup books.
Who hasn't heard of that
I
book?
know, really. Just in
Mm,
case you've been under a rock and don't know who that is,
yeah.
so I was attending this
Mm,
event, and I walked in, and I got there. I showed up during lunchtime, where the event, there were probably about 400 people at the event, but they were
mhm,
on lunch break, except Jack Canfield. He was
mm,
in there, and he was talking to three other people. So when I walked in, his back was to me, and the other three people were facing, towards him,
mm,
which was facing towards me. And I stood there. I was like, "Oh my God, there he is! It's
mm,
Jack Canfield. I'm so excited. I want to get a picture with him." That's all I wanted, was just a picture
mm,
with him. So what happened is I stood there, and I'm a very patient person. I stood there waiting patiently. I
mhm,
looked at their body language to see what they were doing. And then it was like after about 5 or 10 minutes that they were talking, the three people turned away to walk away from me. And Jack happened to turn around and walk towards me. And he
mhm,
said out loud, "I'm hungry. I'm going to go get lunch." So I
mm,
grabbed him by the arm and I said, "Hey, Jack, I'm going to take you to lunch." And
mm,
so again, like the ask method, I just assumed the answer was
yeah.
yes, right? I walked
Yeah.
up there, grabbed his arm, and we went to lunch. It was a 2-hour lunch, $38. When we got back to
Mm,
the venue, I found out that two people had bid on an auction for lunch with Jack Canfield, $14,000 each. And
mm.
I had just paid $38, and I had 2 hours
Jeez,
with him. So
man.
it's like there's so many things that have happened in my life recently just because I have, employed my own ask method. So again, A is always assume, it's assume, the answer is
Okay.
yes. And the S is again, assuming that you are the solution to their problem. So you need to figure
Yeah.
out, like, what is the problem that person is having? Now there could be somebody who's a celebrity. Celebrities have problems too. Political
Yeah, they're
figures have,
people.
we all have problems. So
Yep.
she's figuring out their problem. And I'll give another example of this. So, assuming that you're the solution to their problem. So I was attending this
Mhm.
mastermind where there were a bunch of multimillionaires and billionaires in the mastermind program. And I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to be able to help these guys? Because they get up on the hot seat just like the rest of us do. So I'm on the hot seat in front of them and they're giving me all this great advice. And as one of them gets up there, and he has founded a company that is a brand that is known worldwide. I don't want to say the name of the company, but
Mhm.
it's known worldwide. And he gets up there and I'm like, what kind of problem could he have? I'm thinking in my head. And then he goes into his problem. And his problem was with relationships. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh, okay, he's got a problem with relationships. I can help him. I've been with my husband for 31 years. And so when he started telling us what his challenge was, it was that, his wife had died many years before and he hadn't dated, but there was this woman that he kept on running into at events and he wanted to ask her out, but he didn't know how. Like that
Yeah.
was the problem, right? So for him, he had a problem. So how was the solution, right? I'm thinking in my mind, how can I be the solution to his problem?
Hmm.
So I gave him some tips and tips that I would use to ask somebody out. And being that I've been married for so many years, I had some really I thought was very great advice, and he loved it. And so again, that was actually one of the instances that helped me to create this ask method, because I
Hmm.
was like, no matter who you are, you've got problems, and we just need to discover what is the solution
Yeah.
to their problem and then be their solution,
Yeah.
right? And then the K is to be known as
Hmm.
the solution. So,
Yeah.
what is the problem that you solve? You can't be solving this problem today, that problem tomorrow, and then last week a different problem, because I did this the first 4 years of my entrepreneurial journey. I was just all over the place, just trying to do it all because I hadn't figured out what my one thing was. This mastermind
Yeah.
program that
That
I have
one.
is
Yeah.
the
That
one
one
thing.
specialization, the one thing that really
Yeah.
makes you stand out. Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to be known for that, right? So if you're having a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh man, I'm really having trouble sleeping, as an example, well,
Hmm.
maybe a person that either does sleep therapy, or maybe you are a person who sells essential oils, because I know there's essential oils that help people to sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe there's so the solution, who do you know that is the solution to their problem? Because like for me, for example, a solution would be, women that don't really have a community that they can communicate with,
Hmm.
that don't really, they don't have a supportive environment, because we provide an
Yeah.
extremely supportive. I'm a great cheerleader and I'm going to like cheer you on all the way, right? So
Yeah.
so
Sure.
that's exactly. Woo, yeah, yeah. I should
Woo.
have brought my pom poms today. but but so being known for as that's the solution that I provide, being known as that person. Then when people hear somebody saying I have this problem, they're like, oh, Lynda, that's the one you need to go to.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
being known. So basically it's just always assuming the answer is yes, be the solution to their problem, and be known as that solution. That's
Yeah.
my ask method. It's very simple
Yeah.
and straightforward.
Simple, straightforward, yet effective.
Yes,
It's
extremely effective. Oh my gosh, I've
it's
done
as
some really
simple as
crazy
that.
things. One of the things I did last year, that was that I interviewed the president of Mexico and his presidential suite.
Mm.
That was because I
It's-
asked. I asked.
Yeah. You never know unless you ask. That's what we
Yep,
always been
exactly.
told, and yet we always let the fear get to us.
Yes, exactly. The fear of no. You
Yeah,
know.
the fear of what's going to happen after that. No, are we going to feel embarrassed? And that's kind of digging into the fear of the unknown, really.
Yeah, yeah. That's so true. So true. Don't let your fear stop you. Let it fuel you.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking this could be the advice you would say to someone like, say, a woman that's on the autistic spectrum and she didn't know for most of her life. Because for those that don't know, it's actually easier to detect autism in men than women. So sometimes they end up going undiagnosed and they go through all kinds of stuff, such as the bullying and whatnot. So,
Mm,
and that can continue even on into adulthood as well, where they start thinking that they're stupid or maybe they're not worthy of anything. And what would you
yeah.
say would be the first step for someone like that? That's just has this feeling that she wants to change, yet still has that fear having such an iron grip to her, you know?
I would always recommend a coach
Mm.
because we ourselves, it's hard for us to fix ourselves. Is it possible? Probably. But is
Yeah.
it faster with somebody else's help? Because people on the outside of us see what we don't see. And
Mm.
while I was working with my life coach, I actually came up with this saying because it really helped me. Because when I was working with her, I started to discover some positive things about myself that I
Mm.
didn't know. Because my first husband on a daily basis said, "You're so stupid, you're so ignorant, people are only nice to you because they feel sorry for you." And I believed him because I grew up in that abuse. That was the environment I already knew. And here he was just like locking it in. I'm stupid and ignorant, right? So
Yeah.
when my current husband would say, "You're brilliant, you're smart," and all these wonderful things, I was like, "I don't hear you because this is, no, I'm not. I'm stupid. I'm ignorant," you
Mm.
know? But it was something about my life coach who really helped me to unlock that the reality is that I'm not stupid and ignorant. The reality is I'm a very
Mm.
smart person and I have a lot of value to offer people. So for
Mm.
me to say that out loud took a lot of work, right? For me
Yeah.
to first admit it to myself, because first I had to admit it to myself before I could admit it, outwardly. And is it bragging? It's only bragging to those who think it's bragging.
Mm.
If I don't think
Yeah.
it's bragging,
True.
it's not bragging.
Yeah.
But
True.
I came up with this saying, and that is to see yourself through the eyes of others, but
Mm.
only the positive others, not the negative others,
Yeah.
right? See yourself through the eyes of others, for others see the true you. Because what happened was, as I started like coming out into the world and actually speaking and
Mm.
speaking my mind and having my own opinion instead of paying attention to everybody else, because I was a people pleaser because of all
Mm.
of the abuse that I had experienced.
Yeah.
But once I started like speaking my own mind, I found that people complimented me.
Mm.
And when they complimented me, I used to say, "Oh no, I'm not really that way." And then I just started saying thank you. And when I started saying
Mm.
thank you, so this is some advice I definitely go for is just start saying thank you. One thing
Mm.
is when someone compliments you and you say, "Oh, I'm not really that smart," or whatever it would be,
Yeah. Your
you're
attempts at.
negating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
It's
negating their compliment.
it's kind of like you trying to humble yourself when it's really just someone paying you a compliment and just
Yeah.
recognizing something that they see.
Yeah. And like recognizing what they see, because here's the thing is when we excuse ourselves or we say we're not that good when somebody just complimented us, we're telling
Mhm.
them that their compliments aren't valid. So
Mm.
I started looking at it that way and saying, "Oh, by me having excuses for why I do this well or do that well, is that I'm actually negating their compliment. And I'm saying your
Mm.
compliment doesn't matter." What happens when you do that? People stop complimenting you
Yep.
because you
And
can't take a
then
compliment.
and then that cycle just begins again, and
Yep.
you eventually have to cut the loop somewhere.
Yes, exactly. And so it's all a process, but again, it's I think finding a life coach or a coach of some sort. So whatever it is that you're looking for, finding someone who can help you in that area. Again, can you
Mm.
do it yourself? Maybe, probably not as fast. And they will
Yeah.
see things about you that you don't even know are there. And they will help you to discover those. If you have a good life, my life coach was amazing. I mean, literally
Mm.
flipped my whole entire life around in 5 months.
In 5 months.
Yeah.
What's the average of a life coach that does this? Is it more than that or?
I'm not sure. I'm not a life coach, and I
Mm.
haven't gone through any certifications like that. But
Mm.
I it all depends on the student, right? The
Yeah.
the client, because again, I was really good about doing my homework that she
Mhm.
assigned me every week, and I got to tell you, every week I hated her. But by the end of the week, I loved her because
Mm.
she really went deep and just like so deep into my life and about who I am that I was just crying every single week.
Mm.
because I was growing it was growing pains. It was just a different type of growing pains. It's not physical, right? It was like a mental, emotional growing pains. And I
Yeah.
would cry every single week. And I was just, oh, I hate her so much because she's discovering all these things about me. Oh, she's
Mhm.
helping me to see, who I am. And I would just get so angry. And then I do my homework and I was like, I love her. She's so amazing. I was like schizophrenic
Yeah.
for 5 months.
Oh man, I um, what was it? I had my train of thought here. It was something about it. Yeah, this kind of happens, folks, for me sometimes. Just really overthinking, so this in a way, because like there's so much information, and it's like, oh, well, which one do I pick? Which one? Oh my gosh! And it's like, just say a trigger word or something, just to lodge me out of it. And let's see.
Well, there was a life coach and working with her for 5 months. And
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, and it was, yeah. It's oh man. Well, you definitely done a lot since then. Let's say it that way, because
Yeah.
you're now a speaker. You know your own coach. Yeah, a coach. You also create programs such as Finish It Fast, interviewing people on the red carpet, as you mentioned, and producing events such as Secret Knock. Actually, I'm kind of curious more about what Secret Knock is.
Secret Knock is like the kind of the best way to explain it is it's a gathering of like-minded people.
Mm,
A lot of the people who attend Secret Knock are those multimillionaires and billionaires, who are there to
mm,
support those who aren't there yet. And so it's a way to get in front of them to to get tips, tricks, tools, whatever it is that you're looking for, or to
mm,
build relationships with them. And an example is my first Secret Knock that I attended was actually March of 2015. So this was
mm,
only 3 months into my year of fears. And one of
mm.
the gentlemen I met there was the creator, one of the co-founders of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Frank Shankwitz. So I
Oh,
ended up meeting Frank at Secret Knock. And
mm,
then it turned into this relationship because I went through my own ask method, and I asked him if he would be be a keynote speaker at an event I was going to be putting on. And he said
mm,
yes. So we started this relationship build. And in the process, I have now, since that time, I'm one of the executive producers for a film called Wishman, which is
yeah,
it's the story of Frank's life, which is how the Make-A-Wish Foundation was founded. It's an
mm,
incredible story, and it's based on true facts, his story. And so if you watch it, you're like, whoa, this guy really went through this stuff. And so being
yeah,
part of that, and then that even morphed into something else, is I'm writing a book, and we're getting ready to launch. I'm hoping to launch it on May 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo.
ah,
And
okay,
the book is called Momentum: 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World. Well, Frank is in my book.
mm,
In addition to Frank, some of the other people I met at Secret Knock are in my book, like the founder of Ugg Boots,
mhm,
Brian Smith, the gentleman
okay,
who invented the credit card magnetic strip that the whole world uses,
mm,
Ron Klein, he's in the book. And then one of my mentors, Greg Reed, is also in the book. And
mm,
I mentioned them because those were the ones who really, they played a huge part in my growth period during 2015, me believing in
mm,
myself, me stepping up and saying, you know what, these people are just like you and me, there's no difference. And it was through Frank's story actually that I started to realize that there's nothing different between somebody like that who founded the Make-A-Wish, who has granted hundreds of thousands of wishes worldwide. To
mm,
me, the only difference is they took a different path than I did.
yeah,
And so they've been really instrumental in my growth, and that's why I asked them to be part of my book, and they said yes. And then I reached out to Don Green, who
mm,
is the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And for
mm,
those who don't know what Napoleon Hill Foundation is, Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, which is the entrepreneur's Bible. And
mm,
Don Green is the CEO, executive director of Napoleon Hill Foundation. I was like, Don, will you write the foreword to my book? And he said, yeah, of course. And so
yeah,
literally, it's like Just ask.
Yeah.
Just ask. What do you want? What do you want out of life? You get one shot at this life.
Yep.
What are you asking for? What are you not asking for? What are you regretting that you're not asking for? Get yourself out there. And if you want it, go after it and make it yours. Have it. It's out there for you to have. You just need to ask.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of something I listened to with Gary Vaynerchuk. We all know him, but he mentioned that the one thing that should drive you is the feeling of regret. Because if you want something to inspire you, go to an old folks' home where you're basically looking at the eyes of a person that's basically like days away from. It's that dog. It's just, yeah, figures, But hey.
That's okay. I got dogs too. I'm petting them so they won't.
Well, he's sitting over there just barking at random noises. So anyway,
Yeah.
before I was rudely interrupted by an official guest, he basically said to look into the eyes of the person that's on the deathbed and just seeing that they're already thinking just moments away, if only I've done this, or if I just got up the courage to do that. And I can only imagine on how it's could be just the worst thing in the world, being in that position and not being able to do anything about it. So why not do it?
Yeah, and my mom, it was 2 weeks before my mom passed away. Like, we didn't know she was going to pass away in 2 weeks, but she sat down with me and she said, Lynda, I've had so many things in life that I wanted to do that I never did. I have all these regrets. Make sure you live your life with no regrets. And, because she was in an abusive relationship with my dad for 55 years. So when my dad passed away, she was like, oh, now I can live my life. Well, 2 months after my dad passed away, my mom had surgery for cancer and it didn't go well. She lived the next 3 years in and out of the hospital, and like my husband, I took care of her. Like, we moved in with her and took care of her and everything. But she had all those regrets. She never got to do the things she wanted to do because of the relationship that she was in. So she allowed that relationship to control her life. And when my mom said that to me, I was like, oh my God, you're right. I'm not going to live any more of my life with any regrets. And so I step out and do things I wouldn't have done in the past because I want to make sure when I get on my deathbed, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did everything I wanted to do. I did everything I wanted to do while I was here on this planet.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of how I pushed myself as well, because, limiting beliefs, autism, whatnot, and, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this and that. And eventually it just got to the point where I just, no one's going to save me. Just going to have to save myself. And that's when I made that one push that led to another, and then kept a snowballing effect. And before I knew it, competition last year, started finding my own, definitely feels like my own purpose. Never would have thought in a million years I would start a podcast of all things, and being halfway across the world. And all it just took was one decision, just one decision to just go for it.
And there's a thing, Jack Canfield wrote a book called The Success Principles, and it has, I don't remember how many, there's 100 and something principles in there, but the very first principle is take 100% responsibility for your life, right? So once we learn that was something I had to learn, because I used to blame other people for everything in my life that didn't go well. I was like, they did this, they did that, this person made me do this. And once I started accepting responsibility, it's like it changed. My whole mindset started to change. And that was like, you know what? I'm responsible for these choices, and I can't blame anybody else. So once we accept responsibility, we're able to see how we can accept responsibility for the good things in our lives too, right? Because so it's awesome. Just like you mentioned, snowball effect, right? It's all a snowball effect, whatever that we're doing in life. And it's just, I guess, building a bigger snowman, snowwoman.
Snow person.
Yeah, snow person.
Snow person. Let's just go with that.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, and and we always talked about, oh, it's this person, that person, but in the end, we're always the one that makes that final decision to go for it instead of going against the grain. And the only reason we don't go against the grain is, again, that fear of what would happen if I do go against the grain. And then that just locks us into these type of situations we don't like, but
Yeah. And if you think about it, if you go against the grain and people like the grain that you went on, they're going to now start going on your grain. So, nothing new would happen in life if we were all so fearful, right? About going against that grain. There's so many innovations that have happened that have been odd, strange. The pet rock. I mean, for those who remember the pet rock in the like late 70s, early 80s, somebody put some eyes on rocks and sold them, and they made millions and millions of dollars on these rocks. Now, was that an odd idea? Heck yeah. Did they make a lot of money? Yeah. And people like loved them. I bought pet rocks, I was a kid.
Well, yeah, you don't really need to feed them, and it's very low maintenance. So
yeah, exactly. You just have to like brush them every once in a while or something.
just brush the dirt off of them every once in a while with a toothbrush.
Yeah, but there's so many things. Like every single thing, every single thing that we have here on this planet. If you look around you, every single thing was thought of by somebody. Somebody had an idea to, like, this is a privacy screen I have here. It's got 4 panels. Somebody had an idea to create a privacy screen that has these little black dots on them and sell it. Well, I bought it, And so is it different? Yeah, it's a little different. And somebody was interested in it. So what are the ideas that you have that are hanging in your head and you're not putting them out there because you're scared? Now, maybe one of your fears is that fear of failure. Maybe your fear is fear of success. A lot of people have that fear of success.
Yeah.
Maybe it's fear of judgment. Who knows what your fear is? But your fear is stopping you from pushing that idea out there and, changing people's lives, and or in addition to changing your own life, and you won't die with that idea inside.
Yeah, because everyone has that. I like to believe everyone has at least some sort of purpose in life, whether it's grandiose or even something as small as helping someone that ends up becoming that big person or whatnot, like a chain reaction kind of thing. So, but most of us are just we just get the fear to get to us, whether from like being raised up by either, parents' expectations or expectations from your public school and whatnot, and that was just ingrained, and we just have to learn to just step out of our comfort zones instead of going along with that primal instinct of go the safe route so that you'll survive kind of thing.
Yeah, and I actually experienced something that it's not something I'm proud of to admit, but the truth is the truth. When my mom passed away, my mom was in an abusive relationship for 55 years. My dad passed away, and 3 years later, my mom passed away. And when my mom passed away, it was actually a sense of relief for me. And the reason is because exactly what you just said is I had all these preconceived ideas in my head of my mom's expectations of me. So I always thought my mom wanted this, my mom wanted that. And so I tried to live my life, pleasing my mom. A lot of it was because, I didn't want her to be, hurt by my dad. That was most of it. Like, that's when it all started. So I always wanted mom to be happy. I always wanted to make sure that I could do what I could to make mom happy. So when my mom passed away, it was this like tremendous, like I felt it, like my shoulders really heavy, and it was light all of a sudden. And it was that lifting of that pressure that I really put on myself. My mom never put that pressure on me.
Yeah.
And so what would happen if, instead of me waiting until she passed away, what would have happened had I approached my mom earlier in life and said, Mom, I feel a lot of pressure. I feel like you're putting all this pressure on me. And she'd be like, well, I'm not putting any pressure on you. I'm like, well, so we could have a conversation about it instead of waiting till she passes. So if there's someone in your life right now that you feel like they are just weighing you down, and you're like, and these are all you, again, it's about accepting responsibility. So I accepted responsibility for that. Unfortunately, it wasn't until after she passed away that I hired a life coach. It wasn't until after she passed away that I started reading the Success Principles and like all these amazing books. But, if you're having somebody that's feeling like a lot of pressure on you, have a conversation with them. Maybe the conversation won't go very well, but at least you'll get it out there. You'll get it out there
Mm.
in the public to them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely good advice there. And
Thank
it
you.
and doing that will also make you be able to do all the different things that they always wanted to do, like you have been, such as being the executive producer of Wishman. And I'm kind of curious on what your experience was working on the film, actually.
Well, as an executive producer, we're more like the money people, you
Mm,
know. So they're like, "Oh, we
okay.
need some money. Do you have some?" I'm like, "Yeah." Okay, well, you know, be an executive producer. That wasn't
Mm,
exactly how it happened, but the way it happened is that my mentor, Greg Reed, you know, he's the one who is the mastermind behind the movie. Because what
mm,
happened was Greg Reed has the event Secret Knock, as you mentioned earlier,
mhm,
and he had Frank Shankwitz come in to speak at Secret Knock, and Frank Shankwitz, was telling the story about how the Make a Wish was founded. And then Greg asked him a question, and that one question is what put everything into motion. He said, "So Frank, you've granted, hundreds of thousands of wishes worldwide. What was your wish?" And Frank said, "What do you mean, what was my wish?" He goes, "Don't you have any wishes, like something you wish for?" And he goes, "I just want my grandchildren to know my story. I want my story to be told." And
mm,
Greg said, "Okay, well, sign over your life rights and we're going to make a movie." And that was
mm,
how it started. So it was like, boom, an idea starts, right? We all have ideas. So that idea started. And then what happened after that was that Greg went into motion and he,
mhm,
took action and started, getting funding. Like he needed
mhm,
people to help to create the movie. And then there came to a point where they were already into the filming, about 2 years into it, and I came along and I was, talking to Greg about it, and he said, "Yeah, we need a little bit more money because we ran out. Like they always run out of money in movies, right?" And I
yeah.
was like, "I want in. I want in." He goes, "No, no, no, it's not. This isn't the right thing for you." And I was like, "I don't care if it's the right thing. I want in. I want to be part of this because I just love Frank's story. I love how he helped me to see some things about myself that I didn't know before. So he changed my life. And
Mm,
so I went ahead and I made an investment in the film. And so my process in it really was that aspect of it,
mm,
having being part of the money. And but it's been amazing. I got to see everything behind the scenes as it was going. I got to see the film before it had any music, when the mouths weren't all dubbed up together, like. So it was fun to see kind of the behind the scenes. And
mm.
it's an amazing film. If you haven't seen it yet, it is on Netflix. Go look for Wishman, and it's the story of the founding of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We'd appreciate if you would share it out and get it out there, have as many people see that film as possible because it's very inspiring.
Yep. People, take action right after this broadcast. Come on.
Yes, after the broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wishman.com, I think is what it is.
Yeah. Wishman.com. Okay.
I could be
So,
wrong on that. I'd have to look it up, but I think that's what it is, wishman.com.
mm, yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out. Definitely. I've been meaning to since I've first heard of it last year. So
Hmm.
it's just a matter of getting the time since there's so much to do and so only 24 hours to do it. So,
Yes,
but
exactly.
yeah, exactly. So, and then even further than that, you are also now part of the nonprofit called Giving Angels, where now something about it inspired you to give 10% of your profits to them, I believe yearly. So why don't you tell us what exactly made you go, I want to help these people no matter what, to do something like this?
Well, the Giving Angels is the name of a nonprofit. I founded it. So I
Mhm.
founded it about 3 years ago.
Mm,
And our mission is to eradicate homelessness. So
mm,
yes, that's a very big mission, but things, you can have big dreams and still achieve them. They might not happen in your lifetime, but
yeah.
at least the dream is out there and we're, on the path to get there. So the first
Yeah.
year I was doing the nonprofit by myself the first couple years. I just didn't invest a lot of time into it, at the beginning. And
Mm,
the first year, I actually raised enough money to feed 800 homeless for Thanksgiving, and then the next
mm,
year 1,200, and then the next year 1,600. And then I was like, shoot, we got to do more than just feeding, for Thanksgiving. So I then brought on a board of directors, and we haven't had our first meeting yet. This is all very new development. And so we're working
Mm,
on, working towards having, scheduling that very first meeting, and to talk about,
mm,
different ways that we can get, homeless people off the streets. So homelessness, my brother-in-law was homeless for 7 years.
mm,
He was a veteran of the Vietnam War. And when he
mm,
came back from Vietnam, he had some mental issues. We don't know what happened in Vietnam for him because he never discussed it.
mm.
So anyway, he came home and he got into a lot of trouble. He ended up going to jail for attempted murder. Like, so
Mhm.
his life really changed, after he came back from Vietnam. And so when he got
Mm,
out of prison, he ended up becoming homeless, and he was homeless again for 7 years. And that homelessness, homelessness affects way more than just the homeless
yeah,
people. It also affects their families, which my husband and his brother were extremely close, growing up. So this adversely affected my husband, which of course trickled down to me as his
mm,
wife, which trickled down to my children, because my kids are from a previous marriage. And so
mm,
I noticed that the homelessness, it's way more than just those people who are homeless. It affects a lot of people. So what can
yeah,
we do to help, at least help a little bit? And that's to get them off of the streets. And I found out in my research, I found out that it actually costs more money for them to be on the streets than it does to get them off of the streets and into some sort of housing. It
yeah,
costs less money because when they're on the streets, they get sick more often, so they're taken to the hospital more frequently. So there's a lot of issues by being homeless, that when you simply give them a place to sleep, and some people are like, well, that's a handout. You know what? Sometimes people need a handout before they can get that hand up,
yeah,
because they're in such a mental state that they don't see themselves ever coming out of that ditch. So
mm,
how can we get them out of that ditch? And sometimes it's giving them that handout to a point where they're finally like, I guess I can trust this person.
mm,
Because right now, they are just in a matter of survival, 100% survival mode. And our
mm,
survival needs as human beings is to be able to, eat, drink water, and sleep, and have like a covering, like a
yeah,
housing of some
like a
sort.
shelter over you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some sort of shelter. So even if it's like the tarps, that's not enough. That really isn't, because they're still
Mm.
subject to the weather, and
Yeah,
especially like where you are. Oh my gosh, out there near Chicagoland and stuff. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I'm here
There's
in San
always
Diego.
we always have extreme weather, either very hot summers or very chilly, near zero weather out here. And
Yeah,
even even you hear some of this stuff, such as the homeless youth that in one of the previous episodes of Brooke Kerr and bring awareness of as well. So it's if homelessness affects just not just that stereotype of, oh, he's just a drunk, blah 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 blah. It's
no,
people are just going through all kinds of tough times, whether it be the youth because they want run away from their abusive families, or even some people in the autistic community that end up homeless because they want to be able to find a job, but because the whole misunderstanding and all this other stuff, and then losing their parents, and then they're stuck with the only choice of just being on the streets sometimes.
yeah, it's true, because we don't know any of their situations until we start talking to them, and we can make all
Yeah.
assumptions all we want. But you know what? People can make assumptions about me that are wrong. I'm not homeless, but right,
Mm.
people can make assumptions. We can make assumptions about everybody that is wrong, just because we're basing our assumptions are based on our past, not based
Yeah.
on their past. So it's more about like being compassionate to human beings, and being able to provide a way for them to get off the streets, so hopefully they'll become participating members of society. Will all of them do that? No. But can we
Mm.
help some of them to become participating members of society? Yes, we can. But it has to start with helping them to get off the streets first.
Yeah, I think that's one common word I could say associated with that, and also with discussing about not living in fear, and is to be compassionate to others and also just as much yourself.
Yes. So true. We forget about
Yep.
ourselves.
Yeah, we tend to forget about ourselves since we've always been taught like you always need to take care of others, but you also have to be able to take care of yourself, because in order to take care of others, you need to be in that right state of mind as well. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree 100%.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, man, we're already near that time already. Jeez,
I
it's
know.
just
I can
I
talk.
know it's just well, I can talk too. Surprisingly, despite being on the autistic spectrum, once we get into a subject, some people might wish that we would just go back to being, a little bit in the corner,
Oh,
just being silent. It's just, but that's how passionate we could be about a subject.
yeah, exactly. And I noticed that, yeah, the more you can find what people are passionate about by how they speak about it, right? And so,
Mm,
it's like that compassion and you having, being able to hear the conversation. I like to say, hear what
mm.
they're not saying. So like
Yeah.
it's a lot of times maybe my words that are coming out aren't making as much sense as the passion that I have behind the words that I'm saying, so you can feel people's passion for what it is they're doing. And that's something I had to discover, that like what I had passion for I didn't even know. So
Mm,
it's a great topic. I love it. Yeah, I'm getting ready to my mastermind program. I'm super excited about it because I've
mm.
been doing it for 5 years, and I recently launched it as a paid program because like you were mentioning, we got to do things for ourselves as well. I had this
Yeah.
mastermind program that I ran for 4 years without charging anybody because I just wanted to give, 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 and realize that this is my brilliance, is being able to provide this value, provide this community of women who are supportive and uplifting to each other. And it's been awesome, launching it as a paid program and seeing what happens with it.
Yeah. It's, yeah, definitely. And I just really wanted to thank you for your time to join me for the very first episode of this year. I really appreciate it. Woo.
Thank you.
And I have one more question actually, and it's because March is actually National Women's History Month here in the United States, actually. So I wanted to ask, who is the one woman in history that has given you the most inspiration to take the path you currently walk, and what specifically about it? About
Ooh, that's an interesting question because a lot of the influences in my life have been men. Actually,
mm,
I grew up as a tomboy. I hung out
mm,
with men. A lot of my jobs were working with men or working for men. And so men have been
mm,
the main influences in my life. So when you ask me that question, actually, I'm going to come up with somebody who's been a huge inspiration to me. And when I met her in person, I got to admit, I was so scared because I looked up to her so much. But it's Sharon Lecter. Now she's
mm,
one of the she's a co-author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series of books, and she's
mm,
also co-authored with Greg Reed the book Think and Grow Rich for Women. And then
mm,
she's done so much great work, with philanthropy, as well as helping women to figure out money, because money is a huge
mm.
aspect in this whole planet, right? Where a lot of us are
Yep.
operated based on money. And so I remember the day that I met her in person and had an actual conversation with her. I was interviewing her, and it was at her hotel room. And I like we walked in there and got our cameras set up. I had a videographer with me, and he got his camera set up and everything. And I was so nervous. I look back on that video, and this was probably about 2.5, 3 years ago. And we're sitting on it's like a little, like not a full on couch, but like a love seat kind of thing. And we're sitting on that
Yeah.
and having this conversation. And you can see how nervous I am. Well, I could at least see it. But then I ended up talking to her more and more since then. And she's just really helped me to, again, see how, you know, people who are in a position like that, that are in a position of authority, they're just human beings also. And she
Yeah.
has some really great things to say about me. And it really helped me to see myself differently. So Sharon Lecter, I vote for Sharon Lecter. She's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh man. I, you know, when I ask this type of question, I usually expect like someone that's really well known, but it's also good to recognize those that are behind the scenes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like in that movie Hidden Figures with the women that were behind NASA reaching the moon.
Yep, yep. You never know. You never know who's inspiring whom.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you again for your time. If anyone is interested, Women Action Takers, it's www.womenactiontakers.com, shown here. And if you're interested in contributing to with the homeless, it's also at www.thegivingangels.org. I want to make sure I got that right.
Yep, yep.
Yep. Yeah. And also, if you love what you listen to here and you would like to support the podcast, we do have a Patreon and of course social media through Autistic Eyes Official. If you would like to give support to that, but although I would say give support to the nonprofit, but yeah, that's just kind of me. And if you want to know more about the show, there's also christophercasson.com/podcast to learn more about what I do, and also upcoming episodes, so that you stay ahead of the game and be able to listen to great stuff such as this right now. So, I just want to thank you again for your time,
Thank you,
and
Christopher. I've enjoyed being here.
yeah, I'm enjoying being back on board with this. It's just been too long, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing,
Yeah,
right? We gotta jump into the things that we're really excited about doing because life is short. You don't know when your last breath is going to be. So get out there and do it.
yep,
Take action.
yep, and take action. Do the ask method.
Yes.
So yeah, yep. So I just want to thank you all again for either watching the live stream here or by watching the podcast that's also on different platforms right now: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. And and you know, and this is Christopher D. Casson signing off here, and just showing uh, just an autistic rediscovering the world and taking you along with me. So thank you guys again, and see you next week. Take care. Bye.